Hi, my name is Robby Hirst. I'm a CFI out of North Texas Regional Airport, and today I want to do a short video over the differences between precision approaches and non-precision approaches. You're going to run into these a lot preparing for your instrument check ride, and it's also good information to have just as a good, safe, instrument-rated aviator. So jumping right into it, we've got precision approaches. The most common precision approach that you're going to run into in the wild is going to be an ILS or an instrument landing system. There are some other approaches that are considered precision approaches, such as like a precision radar approach. But the vast majority of the time that you see a precision approach is going to be an ILS. There are three things that you must have in order to be a precision approach. You have to have the lighting system, you have to have a localizer, and you have to have a localizer providing lateral guidance, and you're going to have a glide slope providing vertical guidance. An RNAV is not a precision approach because the lighting system may not be appropriate for an RNAV, and it also technically doesn't have a localizer because it's via GPS. So even if it has the same minimums as the ILS, don't get confused. RNAVs are not precision approaches. On a precision approach, we're going to have a decision altitude. So that decision altitude is going to be your missed approach point. As soon as you descend down to that decision altitude, that's going to be your indication to start your missed approach and fulfill the missed approach procedure. And You're also going to have the lowest minimums for a precision approach. There may be others that have the same minimums, but you won't have other approaches that go lower than precision approaches. Non-precision approaches are basically everything else. So you're going to have RNAVs, you're going to have VORs, you're going to have localizers. They all provide at least lateral guidance. Some of them provide vertical guidance, but they're all going to provide lateral guidance. Those that do not provide vertical guidance will have step down fixes. And so rather than flying this beautiful, smooth slope on the way down, you're going to kind of do this more jagged, flying down to your decision or flying down to your minimums for each fix. We're going to look at an approach plate here in a minute. It'll make more sense in a second. And they have minimum descent altitudes, an MDA. And so this is going to be an altitude of which you're going to fly all the way down to and maintain that altitude without going below it, because on a check ride, that is a concrete floor, that is an instant bust if you go below it. Not to mention, as a safe aviator, you don't want to go below it because you have zero protections going below that MDA before you have the runway in sight. So flying an MDA, you're going to fly down to that MDA, maintain that altitude until the specified missed approach point, which there will be something identifying it on your approach plate. These are generally going to have higher minimums than precision approaches, and they have their sensitivity is wildly varying. So like an WAS-enabled RNAV is going to be very sensitive and very accurate, versus if you're flying in on a VOR approach, it's going to be very open and not near as sensitive. So the more you're able to have some awareness of the kind of approach that you're shooting, allows you to be a safer pilot and know what you're getting yourself into. So we're going to take this moment and we're going to jump over to our approach plate for North Texas Regional. And we're going to start off with the ILS. We did a video not long ago about how to read an approach plate. If this is the first time you're looking at this and it looks like gibberish, go check out that video and then come back here. But we're going to hop down here to this profile view. And you're going to see here that on the ILS, whenever you reach Ribby here, it's going to be this nice, smooth, beautiful descent, and there's going to be a indication next to in your PFD or your HSI but a glide slope indicator letting you know if you're high or low and guiding you directly down to your decision, to your decision altitude of 941 on this approach. That's expecting you to be right about here whenever you hit that, because again, it's dictating your glide slope on the way down, and you'd start that missed approach if you didn't have the runway in sight. So love precision approaches that get you really close to the ground. You can see here, this one is going to get you 200 feet AGL. That is really low. And really gives you a great opportunity to try to break below the cloud ceiling to be able to get the runway in sight. We're also going to take a look at the VOR approach. So the VOR, again, is a non-precision approach. And so it's going to have much higher minimums, and it's going to have that MDA that we were talking about, that minimum descent altitude. So if we look here, whenever we fly past Haipan, which is our final approach fix, we're going to chop and drop down to 1340. So that descent, even though that has this beautiful drawing here, that descent for us is going to look more like this. And we're going to shoot across. Obviously, you would never go below your MDA. I'm just drawing on my iPad here. But you're going to chop the power and come down. You don't want to descend more than about 1,000 feet per minute. You want to have a stabilized approach. So don't let how steep my arc is there catch you off guard. But the idea is to get down to that MDA and try to see the runway environment. And you just maintain that MDA until you reach the missed approach point. The missed approach point in this case is going to be 24 DME from the bomb vortex. So it has a defined missed approach point, and that's when you would start your missed approach. So you maybe were able to get down to 1340 at 22 miles away from bomb. And so you're going to fly at that altitude for 2 miles, and then you're going to see that 24 DME strike, and you still don't have it in sight, and you're going to start the missed approach. So you follow your missed approach instructions. Now, if you are coming down to your MDA, and your MDA is still pretty low, you're almost 600 feet AGL, you're below 600 feet AGL, and you come down to minimums, and you don't have it, and it's making you nervous being down there. Maybe you're losing a little bit of control because you're stressed staying at your MDA. You can start the missed approach point at any point. You can start climbing for the missed approach point at any point. You can only start your turns after you cross the defined missed approach point. So you fly down to that MDA, you're uncomfortable with the approach, you can start climbing back out on your missed approach instructions, but you can't make any turns until after you cross the defined missed approach point. So again, on the precision approach, you had your DA, which was your missed approach. When you reach that altitude, you went around. On the MDA, or minimum descent altitude for the non-precision approach, you maintain that altitude until you have the runway in sight. It's a pretty common mistake. You'll see a lot of people on their non-precision approach get confused, and they'll hit the MDA and start to go around. Well, that's not really how it's designed to be flown. You can do it if you weren't comfortable with the approach, but the idea is to maintain that altitude until you reach the defined missed approach point. So the other thing that I want to bring up about this one is you'll notice this non-precision approach is going to be circling. So this VOR, you'll notice, isn't associated with any specific runway. It's just the VOR alpha. So all this VOR is doing is getting you to the airfield and then allowing you to make the right decision for what runway you need to go to. So we're going to come down here and take a look at our airport diagram, and you can see this arrow here shows us where we're going to be coming from this VOR approach. And you're kind of approaching the runway at the side here. There are some that line you up close to a runway, basically lined up with one, but in this scenario, you're basically approaching the runway broadsided. and tower will let you know if they want you to circle for runway 18 left or circle for runway 36 right. And based off of that, you would make either a left turn for 36 right or a right turn for 18 left. And in our scenario, North Texas, they would say enter a left downwind, report midfield for runway 18 left. We don't have radar, so we do reporting at midfield. So, so that's our circling. And it's good to note that your MDA, as you're starting your circling and you're on your downwind leg, you still want to maintain your MDA at this altitude. It's not really a good time to start descending yet. You have the runway in sight. Specifically on your check ride, your DPE wants to see that you have good control to maintain that MDA. And if you were in a normal traffic pattern, you're already quite a bit below the normal traffic pattern. Again, we're at 600 feet AGL, and a normal traffic pattern is 1,000 feet AGL. So you're already below where you would normally be for a traffic pattern. You don't need to descend anymore until you start that base leg turn. That's when you can go ahead and start that descent down. And treat it like a normal landing. At that point, you're already going to have visual contact with the airport, and it's just a normal landing. Come in and land it, no stress. But on that downwind leg, maintain that MDA and don't dip below it. Make sure that instrument scan is moving really quickly, and you keep that altitude in your scan all the time. The ACS standards for flying a non-precision approach for altitude is -0 plus 100. So you have a buffer of 100 feet above, -0. You go 1 foot below it, and you've spent $1,000 on a check ride that you're leaving home without a certificate. Not to mention, we're good, safe aviators, and that's not what we're striving to do. So that's a non-precision approach with circling minimums. I would be remiss if I didn't have a conversation that my double I DP had with me back whenever I got my double I. He has known multiple people throughout the years who have had tragic accidents when performing a circling approach to an airport. They're not precision. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and so he really imparted into me, and I imparted to other people. Whenever you're in the real world, try to find a straight-in approach. Find an RNAV. I mean, they have RNAVs for almost every runway now. So if you're coming down into real minimums, and if there's a question if you're not going to have the runway in sight, try to find something with some lower minimums, like an RNAV, a straight-in approach, because these circling minimums there's a lot up to you, and you could lose visual with the runway at any point during that circle, and you have to start that missed approach. So anytime you can, try to find a straight-in approach is the point of this conversation. The other non-precision approach example I want to talk through is going to be an RNAV. So I've got the RNAV 18, just like we had for the ILS 18. We've got the RNAV now, and like I mentioned, the RNAV is technically a non-precision approach, even though if you have a WAAS-enabled GPS, it is going to be able to give you that vertical guidance down. So you're flying this approach, and let's assume that you have that vertical guidance, and so you reach GAIAG, and you've got a WAAS-enabled approach, and so you reach GAIAG, and you've got your glide slope indicator. Just stay right on that glide slope. Follow that 3-degree glide slope all the way down to your DA, your decision altitude, and at that point you would start the missed approach. However, if you do not have a WAAS-enabled GPS, then you would be using these RNAV minimums, which is going to be an MDA that you can see here, or circling minimum. So maybe you're shooting the RNAV 1A to circle to 3.6 right, which again, 3.6 right has an RNAV. I highly encourage just shoot the RNAV for that one, even if it takes a little bit more to be able to fly south to do the approach. It's just safer to fly straight in. So I would recommend not doing the circling for the other runway if it has an RNAV, but it is there if you want to use it. So we're going to spend more time talking about this LNAV coming in. Let's say you don't have a WAS-enabled GPS, and so we're going to be flying these step-down approaches. So as we reach Guyag, if we had that glide slope, we'd be able to fly that nice, beautiful 3-degree glide slope in. But without it, this is going to look more like this. We're going to fly down to that altitude, maintain it again, fly it around. We're going to fly down to 2,800 is our altitude here. We're going to maintain that until Higer, and then at Higer we are cleared to descend down to 1,320 and continue across at 1,320 until we reach our missed approach point. At that point, we would start our missed approach procedure. So this is what they call step down fixes. You're going to fly down to your fix, maintain that altitude until you reach that next fix, and then you can fly down to the next minimum again. Again, this MDA is the idea is being able to fly down, maintain that altitude until you reach your missed approach point, and then initiate your mixed approach. So that really covers the main differences between precision approaches and non-precision approaches. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out anytime. My email will be right below, and I would love to be able to be a part of your pilot journey and help any way that I can.